What's up, everybody? It's your n0thing Gilbert, and welcome to episode 4 of AORUS Pro Tips. In today's episode, we're going to be talking about drills to develop your aim. Today's episode and all the other episodes have been filmed on this awesome AORUS 15P laptop with the Intel Core 11th Gen processor. We'll throw the specs up on the screen right now so you guys can get an idea for the rest of the stuff in this laptop, and also include a link down in the description. So, that being said, we're going to jump right into the action. Now, first things first, I want to talk about two drills. The first drill is pretty straightforward, but it's just something to focus on because with all these aim trainers and everything nowadays, a lot of people get caught up at all these different ways to approach aim training. And I have a very simple method that I've always employed. And I think, it doesn't hurt to try other things. Anything that's going to help you feel the weight of your mouse, feel your sensitivity, and feel kind of just the overall game is going to give you a better sense and better result when aiming. You don't want to be thinking about aim. It's got to be a pure feel thing. Now, the first drill, the simple one, is simply, I want you guys to acknowledge something. When you're practicing aim in CSGO or other shooters similar to CSGO, it's not so much about tracking as it is about pre-aim and flicks. So pre-aims are pretty easy to practice because you're simply just running around pre-aiming. You can do this in deathmatch, you can do this against friends, you could do this in, silly matchmake games that you don't care about on your alt account. Or maybe that's BM and Toxic, you shouldn't do that. But the first two. And pre-aim's pretty easy to practice. The other one, though, is flicks. And I think, flicks are obviously something you want to practice on moving targets, deathmatch, and aim. But overall, I like to do two things. One, I plant my wrist on the table. Whether I'm an arm player or a wrist player, my limit for a controlled flick is going to be when my wrist is on the table. Yes, you can flick with your arm, and that's one thing, but that's a little more inconsistent. Part of a big flick is arm because it centers your wrist all the way into that new area, but the final control comes from your hand planted when you click, right? So what I like to do is I like to look at how far I can flick left and right with just my wrist planted. For me, that's it. And then what I'll do is I'll practice those from the center out each way. And I'll just feel this, and this is kind of something I do in warm-up even, and then I'll do the halfway points between each flick. As you can tell, my left flicks are better. They always have been. It's something I work on, but I just kind of accept it's easier for me to move my hand this direction than the other. Now, that drill is very simple, but I think it's super underrated. It's very important for you to just every once in a while do that and get a good feel in your wrist tied to the visual of how far you're flicking and the comfort. Because I know, for instance, if there's a guy hauls, I just can feel that in my hand. And it's not going to be perfect every time, but it's going to be much better than someone who's not aware or feel these things through practice. Now, drill number 2, I think, is really unique because what it does is helps you get more control over just feeling and shooting overall and not be so flustered by the situation. And I think having the ability to put your crosshair and shooting style together and not be so flustered and start spraying when you shouldn't or have a bad pre-aim, all these things work together in tandem. And the drill is simply when you're running around in deathmatch, mainly, you could do in other modes, but mainly deathmatch, you choose a shooting style and you only do that shooting style no matter the distance of the opponent. So my favorite one, I think, for optimal control is just tapping. One shots. And no matter where you see somebody, if they come around the corner right here, you just have to keep tapping. I think what this does is it makes your response to seeing an enemy a little bit cleaner. You start to realize that you have to focus on controlling the crosshair level a little bit. That's the placement, kind of the pre-aim. And then you'll be surprised with if you flick to somebody and you don't just do that. You'll be surprised if you just focus more on aim, because that's what's going to happen when you tap. You obviously don't want to tap their knee or their chest. You don't want to tap their head. You'll be surprised what happens to your flick aim as it becomes more precise. You don't need to play headshot only server. When you're focused on one shots and pre-aim and flicks. And what's going to happen is you don't only DM like this. You want to go back and forth between spraying and flicking, tapping and spraying and flicking and just doing. You could even do hard pre-aims. If you know you're going to swing top mid, I wouldn't suggest running around a corner like this in comp. But if you want to, this is a way to practice flicks. Because if a guy's there, it's going to be really hard. You're going to have to do that. It's a way to approach it. As you just saw my cat walked by, he likes the same drill. Now, I want you guys to remember these are things you have to do over and over. The shooting style thing, I think, is something that's going to slowly bleed into your play. I think it's very underrated. And that's really all I wanted to share today, guys. I would love to hear some feedback for what you think. Do you think tracking is important? I personally think flicks versus pre-aim are the two most important. And I wanted to keep this video short and sweet today. Thank you guys for watching. I look forward to any comments or thoughts on these 2 points. I think, like I said, everything ties together with getting more kills. I think the more you focus on being refined in your shooting style, the less you're going to resort to spraying. The less you resort to spraying, the more you're going to visualize getting precise kills, getting precise headshots, which will open you up to play a style where maybe you get that kill and fall back, and you didn't have that ability because you didn't used to have the confidence in the aim, because you didn't practice these drills. All right, guys, see you in the next and last episode of this series of AORUS Pro Tips. Hope you enjoyed.